Hello again. In this video, we're going to be talking about shapes of distributions. So we have two basic types that we're going to be talking about, symmetrical and skewed. So the shape of a distribution is a basic characteristic that's used to describe a distribution of scores. So as I said, most of them are either described as symmetrical or skewed. So here is a symmetrical distribution. This is an example of a normal or a bell-shaped distribution. It means that most of the scores are clustered in the middle and some scores are more extreme on the outer ends. Normal distributions are symmetrical, meaning that if this were on a piece of paper and you drew a line in the middle and you folded it in half, the sides would be exactly the same. This is a symmetrical distribution. We can have a symmetrical distribution that looks like maybe two bells. This is called a bimodal distribution. And for those of you familiar with the mode, you'll understand why. We're going to talk about the mode in lesson 3. But a bimodal distribution has two different peaks, but it's still symmetrical, meaning that if I took this on a piece of paper and I drew a line in the middle and I folded it in half, each side would be exactly the same. It's symmetrical. So a bimodal distribution has scores that cluster in two different points with not much in the middle. The next kind of distribution we have is called a skewed distribution. And this is an example of something called a positive skew. And a positive skew occurs when most of the scores are on the left-hand side, but some extreme scores on the right-hand side sort of pull the curve away. So the scores cluster on the left and trail off to the right or tail off to the right. Just to make things a little bit more confusing, sometimes we call this a right skew. And you look at this and immediately you think of all the scores being on the left, but it's the outlier scores that are kind of skewing the distribution. Think of it that way. So this is a positive skew. And this is an example of a negative skew. Sometimes the scores bunch up on the higher end and trail off towards the left. So this is a negative skew, and it's also called a left skew because the left is being pulled by these outlier scores. So you are going to need to know what these different types of distributions, shapes of distributions are. So make sure you kind of commit this to memory, maybe try to find some mnemonic device for remembering what is a positive skew and what's a negative skew. All right, I'll see you at the next video.